We are now recording. I want to call to order the meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach Boardwalk and Beach Committee. It is 9:04 a.m. on Monday, September 30th. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I just want to have little reminders that we are being recorded and video recorded, so you can. Some people might be watching this live. Some people might be able to watch it recorded. In fact, you all can go home and watch yourself on TV if you like. We're going to do roll call by way of asking each member and member of the public to state their name and do it loud enough. So this is kind of a sound check, if you will, for everybody. I'm, of course, Stan Mills, former commissioner and chair of the Boardwalk and Beach Committee.
Frank Cole, 24 Wilmington Avenue.
Steve Curson, 210 Philadelphia Street.
Gary Glass, 105 Country Club Drive.
Guy Abernathy, 50 Wilmington.
Honey Fisher, North Boardwalk.
John Dewey, 105 Scarborough.
Susan McNally, 115, 15 Cookman Street.
Kevin McGuire, 15 Cookman Street.
Jay Lagree, 7 Prospect Street.
Chief Banks, Rehoboth PD.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for coming today. On the agenda, it allows me to sequence things how I want, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do today. And there's a rhyme to my reason, but you may not figure it out. We've done the roll call. I want to review committee membership. We have 10 people total, including myself, on this committee. It's a variety of people that live most everybody lives in town. Mark Henschke lives out of town, but he represents Funland. So we've got somebody representing a business on the south side of town. Mark's not here today. We have Honey Fisher that lives in a residence on the north side of town. Frank owns bicycle shops that are on the boardwalk, so he represents a business on the boardwalk. Steve Curson lives on the south side of town. Gary Glass lives in Country Club Estates. Guy Abernathy lives on south of Rehoboth, that Wilmington area there. And everybody kind of uses the beach in different areas. So that's why I think this is such a good group. Because we have 10, we need 6 to be able to conduct business officially. And of course, we have achieved that. And we have Evan Miller, just from the city, just joined us. You're welcome. And there's a handout up here that you can use. Next, review of committee membership. I also wanted to indicate that the mayor had asked me to continue as chair in a citizen position. And I indicated I would be glad to do that for a while, provided I got invited to participate in more boardwalk and beach activities, such as renovations of the restrooms or researching or consulting on family restrooms and things like that. And he and the city manager agreed to that because I want to represent this committee, especially with things dealing with the boardwalk and the beach that are relative to our recommendations that we've had before. So I'm glad to be able to fill in that position. Now, at some point in October, the mayor and commissioners need to vote on the committee again and voting me in, as well as you. And as you know, I polled all the members. I have responses from all but one so far that everybody would like to continue on this committee. And so I'm very grateful because we work well together and you've got a very deep knowledge base. So thank you very much for being willing to continue in membership. Next bit of item of business is approval of minutes. This is our last meeting, was held on May 13th. We couldn't make quorum at the August meeting, and so we skipped a few days. And so if everybody's read it, there are a few typographical errors and that have been pointed out to me, and we can just say that as part of the motion, we'll correct those typographical errors. If everybody's read it, then I would take a motion to accept the minutes of the May 13th, 2019 meeting.
I move to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
So we have a move by to approve the minutes as is but with a note to correct any of the misspellings or diction errors. And seconded by Steve Curson. All those in favor of approval of the minutes as the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and so the minutes are unanimously approved. Thank you very much. We have some correspondence from John Dewey, and if you don't mind, I'd like to defer that until we actually get to a point later in the meeting when we're talking about city projects and family restrooms and everything. That's all right. The next thing we want to do is, and again, to the members of the public, please raise your hand. Again, we invite your participation. We just kind of have a fast pace up here a little bit sometimes. Next bit of business is review and refine the mission statement up on the screen there. Our mission statement, we like to go over each time just as a reminder. We examine issues related to maintaining the boardwalk and the beach's major assets. Sounds pretty simple. Thank you, Ann. And our guiding principles are clean, safe, friendly, do no harm. One time we put a snowplow up on the boardwalk and we gouged it, so we threw that little principle in there. Let's try not to do any harm. And then aesthetics are important. And at the very last meeting, we tried to define and expand the guiding principles. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but here they are, as determined at the last meeting that we had. What I like to do each time is just go over this based upon conversations at the previous meeting. What I'd like to do is just have a 30-second conversation or so on aesthetics. What does aesthetics really mean? We've always, and I'd like to clarify it perhaps in this term, in terms of view shed, the view. We've talked about Baltimore Avenue facility being expanded, and we were concerned about the view from the street. We're concerned about what else? The view from north and south on the boardwalk. The broad view. We're concerned about the view of the ocean from the boardwalk and from the street end. So I'd like to, if that's all right, I'd like to incorporate that in the future.
Should be.
So that we're specifically talking about view because one thing I want to mention during our city projects is just a brief mention of wireless towers that may be going up on the boardwalk in the future. All righty, so we're fine there. We'll move on. To the next item that I want to cover in this sequence.
Question?
Well, yes, sir.
Is there going to be a discussion of these items later? Are we just doing a summary right now, or are we just going to add view to the aesthetics?
I was intending for this to be the sole
Discussion?
Yeah.
So we're just going to add to what we already see as aesthetics?
Yeah.
View.
But in other words, just right up there, protect our brand.
Yeah.
View sheds are important. Views meaning the views from this, and this.
Because I think one other thing, and it may be already included, is commercialization of the boardwalk. I think signage and advertising and things. I think one of the things that I like about Rehoboth, I don't know if it's agreed upon by everybody, but is we have minimal commercialization of our boardwalk, and it's a relaxing walk down the boardwalk. You go to some towns as I have, and it's loaded with advertisements everywhere you look, and on the boardwalk, on the sides, and banners hanging across.
I think an appropriate time to expand on that would be when we get to the tour of the New Jersey towns.
Okay.
And we may just hit on it briefly at this meeting and more so at a following meeting. But I think if you go through those slides, you will see illustrations of no commercialization, minimal, max, and overdone.
So good. Okay, so that's coming.
So it may be a good time to bring that up.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary. Review and approval of draft committee report on bicycle use on the boardwalk, including signage, routing to the boardwalk, access, egress, specifically at but not limited to the north portion of the boardwalk. If you recall, this is the fourth meeting we've had on. We've had 3 substantial discussions of the bicycle report, which is handed out. Does everybody have it? Again, it's a draft one. in front of you. The, let me bring it up on screen here. Unfortunately for those viewing on camera, we don't have the camera operator at the committee meetings, so you're not gonna be able to see what's on the screen. So the best thing you can do is go to your agenda for this meeting, and on it there are links to all our support documents, so you should be able to bring them up on your computer as you watch this meeting. So we have a draft report here that's based on, that I created based on the minutes from the last 3 meetings and the illustrations from the last 3 meetings. And I tried to put it all together in one cohesive thing. If you recall, this topic was brought to us by the Streets and Transportation Committee. They were trying to look at how to resolve, say, congestion with bicyclists and pedestrians and strollers up at the north corner of the boardwalk, the very north end of the boardwalk, which is where the Henlopen condos terminate up there. Surf Place is up that area. Street and Transportation gave us 4 options. John Eckenrode, a member of the public, gave us an option. We created our own options there. And we want to be able to pass this on to the mayor and commissioners at the next meeting, October meeting, if we're ready for it. And I wanted to go over with, see if there were any edits, changes, any change in position on anything. Yes?
Just for the people viewing, I'm not sure this is actually on the agenda. I'm just looking at it online, and I didn't print it off last night.
Bicycle report.
It's on there.
It's on
Is it
there.
on the agenda?
Yeah, it's on there.
Yeah, it's on there.
Where is it?
It says agenda.
It's like,
Bicycle
here's the beach
report.
and boardwalk.
Number,
No.
it was on there.
See, that's the beach and boardwalk. I mean, that's.
I
the
think you're
bicycle.
right. It's
Maybe it
not
was on an
there.
older.
So
one.
just
Looking
wanted
at
to-
the other one.
We-
it's not-
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
have
have
it.
it.
We will embed it
Yeah.
Yeah, so just so the people
in
at
the
home,
agenda
if-
after this meeting.
if they're looking for it,
So we
they won't be able to find
we
it.
will embed that after, because it is a draft.
Right,
And
right.
in fact, it would probably be better just to wait and embed the
Put it in the
final
final.
when we have it done. Okay.
Okay.
So are there any edits that you see right away?
I think you did, is this the appropriate time to bring up my comment? Okay. I think you did an awesome job collecting up all the comments from everybody. There was one thing that I thought of later. When you look at the intersection where Surfside Place intersects with Lake, it just creates a huge traffic problem if they make Surfside Place 2-way, in my opinion. Because you're on Lakeview and you've got one-way traffic there if they're coming across, and if they're coming out, in addition to trying to get all the way across to Lake, I think it creates an issue.
Well, let me go through the options real quick, so everybody else can see them also, and then we'll reiterate your point there,
Okay.
because it may change what our priorities are. Of course, this is what we're talking about, the north tip of the boardwalk there, where I call it the confluence of concrete sidewalk, wood boardwalk, Surfside Place, and all that up there. And forgive me, I'm gonna go through it quickly, but you also have the handout there, I believe. If you recall, one of the concepts, the first concept was a walk your wheel zone. And the walk your wheel zone is kind of depicted here, and that was created by the committee, Street and Transportation Committee, that you would have to walk your bike in this area. And then to do so, I try to show that you need all these other arrows and signage to direct people around and everything. So if you're gonna stay mounted, you follow the arrows and you keep riding on your bike, but if you're gonna walk, you're gonna walk that one area. So that's one option. We disfavored it because we didn't think it was realistic. Okay.
Difficult enforcement.
You're right. So the second option was, concept 2 was providing these lanes as shown here. And again, this is an interpretation of Street and Transportation Committee's thoughts on this topic. And when we analyzed it, we thought that on the left side there, that that you also needed to add a third lane for the bumper, parking bumper, and then that pushed the cars back so far that that was a problem. And so we didn't favor that. Concept 3 was direct bikers to exit and enter Grenoble. Okay, so all bikers have to get on and off at Grenoble. Now that merges, and again, I apologize to the public, we've gone over this very quickly, but it would make more sense in the final draft that's expanded on it. And then the next concept was directing bicycles off at Virginia Avenue. And of course, the routing would be something like that. So you need a lot of signage, you need to do it. But as I was putting this together, I was coming across, how is getting off at Grenoble or the North Boardwalk or Virginia any different than walk your wheels? Are they intending to ban bicycles 100%? Because otherwise, this is a walk your wheels program.
Looking at Virginia Avenue over the past few weeks, I've noticed when the boardwalk riding ends, a lot of families are going down Virginia Avenue. If they're headed north, then they're forced to be on that narrow strip of First Street just before they cross the bridge at Lake Gerard. So that, I don't think that's the best routing when you consider small children, you know, people with trailers, kids with training wheels, things like that. Puts them into a high traffic kind of stress zone there between Virginia Avenue and the park at Lake Gerard.
Is Grenoble better?
Well, remember, we've said we didn't favor it, so I don't want to rethink it too much if we've already said this doesn't work very well. Now, what I would like to show you real quick is the city just recently installed these walk your bike decals on. This is a concrete sidewalk leading up to a wood sidewalk leading to the boardwalk. Okay, so the city started. I don't know.
That's right up front of the condo. The condo.
Is that?
That's where it is.
That's,
Yeah.
okay.
So is the boardwalk a walk your bike now?
No, this is just,
I think the intention was to make it for the sidewalk,
For the sidewalk?
so really it should be turned the other way.
yeah, because if
It's
that's facing the
confusing. Yeah.
wood boardwalk, it's giving the wrong
It's
message.
confusing.
So that's one
But
thing.
that's a long surfside place parallel to the beach.
Oh, I know, yeah.
The concrete sidewalk there.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
that is.
So we need to look
They
at
need to
that
turn
actually
that
to see
around.
that's
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Now, what I wanted to do is, as we have evaluated, we have said we don't think the Walk Your Wheels program works. And we didn't already said we don't want people being directed off at Grenoble or Virginia, and I'm fine with that. But I'm going back to that Walk Your Wheels program. Could it actually work or not? And I'm not satisfied. I mean, I have my answer, but I wanted to show you this. Looking up different places that have the dismount zone. They've got cyclist dismount. They've got these other signs. So a lot of other places are starting to do this kind of thing. In the boardwalk, this is the boardwalk at Asbury Park, New Jersey. Now, Asbury Park has a convention hall that you literally walk through the boardwalk. The boardwalk literally goes through the convention hall hallway. And so here's from the south, you're walking there, and then as you approach it, if you look in the circle, there is a Walk Your Wheels sign. And of course, it's two-sided, so you get it from each side. And then this is in Spring Lake, New Jersey. They actually have a swimming pool and clubhouse right on the boardwalk area there. So as you're approaching this building here, here's a sign: all bikers must walk bicycles under pedestrian at all times, and all runners and joggers must walk. So they want everybody to slow down. Now, Jay Lagree and I, when we went there, I don't know what time we were there in the morning. I suspect we were there at a time after bicycles we're not allowed on the boardwalk anymore. So we don't know whether that works or not. And the only thing I can say, maybe Jay, you could have an opinion too. The only thing I can say is that both of these most likely worked, but they're a different situation than ours. This actually has an overhang tunnel that you're going into that, to me, defines that area absolutely, that bicycles need to be walked.
But here to the left, isn't there the boardwalk?
Now, this is
That's
the
beach, that's all beach.
This is the boardwalk.
Okay, so that's
This
all
is
beach.
the beach there.
Okay.
This is the boardwalk going underneath.
Okay, okay.
So if you look there, that's what you're approaching right here.
I got it, okay.
Is this building. You're gonna go underneath. To me, that kind of defines a walk your wheels area. Different than us, we don't have that area that's defined. I mean, it's all open air. And the same thing with the convention hall. That's pretty darn obvious there. In fact, that's probably the most obvious to me, that walk your wheels makes a sense. So I don't know if we want to add some of the signs in the pictures to the walk your wheels thing and say we think it could work, or we think we're still dubious that it would work because for some of the reasons I just articulated. Do you all have a different opinion now of the walk your wheels? No?
Well, I think it can work. I've seen people, I have heard visitors in the summer say, oh, you gotta get off your bike here. There's a sign on the sidewalk. They do notice it.
Well, work on the boardwalk.
It depends on where yeah, I think it would eventually. You might need to have the seasonal there for a couple days. I think people would get the message.
The more I listen to this, the more I think it's more imperative to regulate speed on the boardwalk, which is a discussion we had 4 or 5 years ago. And now it seems like we've got different user groups out there, people out there every day, but the boardwalk is designed for a very slow pace of bike riding. It's not designed for 10-mile-an-hour, 15-mile-an-hour riding. It's more in line with 7 miles an hour, 8 miles an hour. So I think that might be an easier sell to the public than get off your bike and walk your wheels.
Well, I'm not sure. This is more routing and how to get on and off. So I think that we could go back to that. But I think right now the focus is on routing. And so do we want to modify? Do we want to insert these slides and say make your own judgment? Maybe it could work. Anybody have any opinion? Joe, Jay?
I think those
Here you go, bro.
areas, I think those areas are areas that get really congested with people. I think those are areas that get really congested with people at different times during the day, especially this one in Asbury Park. When they're having events and things, this area in here will get packed. And the same with the pavilion around Spring Lake. That's where people are coming and going, and they get really packed. And I think that, if this was full of people, you probably couldn't ride a bike through there. So I think that's one reason they have a walk your bike area. In our case, I think we're just slowing people down to make that turn and for safety's sake. I rode my bike today just to see how 8 miles an hour is fast on our boardwalk.
It is fast.
Yeah, it's too fast.
It is.
Hold on to that and manage it. Oh, Ken, got it.
Hi, I would just argue that almost at any speed, a bike on the boardwalk is difficult. I mean, I've seen people, older people, or whatever, sort of riding very slowly, but when they encounter a group, they have to slow down even more. I think it's just hard. Even you can't really slow down a bike. Plus, the slower you get, the less stable it gets. And I see some people on these bikes on the boardwalk that it's marginal.
Well, again, let Jay hold on to that and manage that if you would. Again, if we want to go back to that, we've had past discussions on speed share the boardwalk signs, painted lines on the boardwalk and all those things that to me, again, are separate than routing on the boardwalk. This is, how do we want to direct people on and off the boardwalk? How would we prefer that they get on and off the boardwalk?
Like in woods, they create paths going through woods that aren't necessarily where the Park Service wants you to walk, because people will take the easiest way, the shortest distance. And I think in routing it, I think when people come down Surf Avenue there, they're gonna go right into the sidewalk area like they do now.
Well, that's what we've said before. We're starting to reiterate ourselves because our past talks have been, I think, Frank, you brought it up. People aren't used to circuitous routes. They want the straightest route. And so the straightest route would be north-south on the boardwalk, not having to get off anywhere. And so maybe I'll just include these slides and leave our report similar, close to what it is.
Because I mean,
I need some guidance here.
Maybe pushing the cars back there and trying to make that parking lot work. And
Well, now you're going on to a different concept. Again, all we're
the one
doing
we
is
had where
walk your wheels. Let's go back to
one of the
report. Okay, so we've got concept 3, concept 4, concept 5. John Eckenrode's idea here uses the traffic lanes here. I want to just go over them real quick and then I'll come back to them. Now, concept 5 was focused on getting bicycles on and off at the north corner by redoing that whole corner so the handicap parking space moves farther north. The handicap ramp moves north. There's a specialty ramp here for the bicycles that also allows the city trucks to get on and off. Honey, you made a comment that we were told in the past that city does not use this corner anymore for the trash truck on and off, and as we know, it still is doing it to this day. So that's where, again, our earlier recommendation was if indeed the city's going to use that for trash trucks, then they ought to move the parking space north, make a new handicap ramp, put a new thing there. And so that kind of blends in with our recommendation here. So this is a two-way street thing. Honey's point earlier is this area down where Surfside Place intersects with Lake Avenue, and then this Lake Avenue could be a problematic area. So while we like this concept and I think prioritized it, we then went to concept 7. And again, I apologize for going so quickly. We've been over this 3 times. This is the one that we like the most because it got rid of that right turn lane on the right side of the triangle. The right lane putting bicyclists and cars so close to the intersection up there. So that was our priority. And then
Stan, I have a
Yeah.
question. My understanding, maybe going back just a little bit, why did we leave the handicap car parking spot on that side of the triangle rather than just move the triangle all the way up there, just eliminate and put it on the other side?
put it
All the
over
way-
here.
The one all the way to the left, why didn't we move the triangle all the way up there and eliminate, because that's it, you come off of Lake Avenue, there's that one parking spot there for handicap. Why didn't we put that in the parking lot? Like move the triangle over so that there's no parking spot there? Sure, I'll point you out.
So,
You know what I mean?
I got you. Over here.
I'm just- I'm
Why,
trying-
why do we need that? And that's a good.
No, I mean,
good
push it
point.
over so that we got it on the other side.
Over here.
keep the parking
Keep it on the
together.
right-hand side, keep the
Over
parking
here.
all together.
That's a possibility.
I mean, that seems like a trouble spot, that one parking spot.
The reason was there's already a handicap ramp on the left side.
Right.
And we would have to put another one in, which actually consumes another parking space, that's all. I think what we need to understand though is that when these recommendations are put forward to the city manager is also gonna take recommendations from the Street and Transportation Committee, which may marry ours and may not. But at that point, they're likely gonna need to hire traffic consultant on this. So we're not the experts in this. It's not gonna look like this in the end anyhow, but we're giving them some initial concepts, I think, to look at. This one we crossed off. This was widening a portioning of the sidewalk to allow bikes to go a little farther, having a second entry and exit off of here, and we just thought that that was overall just overly complicated. What I would like to bring up, and that has to do with Honey's comment earlier that she led off with. That's this area right here. Can you see it up there?
I don't see a mouse up there.
Chief, can you point to where the electric chargers are, where the, where that Surfside Place?
The electric chargers here?
Yeah, and the Surf, so
down.
that, just that whole intersection there where Surfside Place joins Lakeview, joins that whole, my mouse isn't showing up. Honey will point to it. Just,
This is
Just-
Surfside Place. This is Lakeview. Now, if you're coming out here, especially on a bicycle, you just have to watch for the cars coming from here because this is one way. But if they make that two-way, you're coming here, you got this coming, that coming, and that coming, and it's just, that's my, I just think it's.
Thank you, Chief and Sonny. So the point is that if we stick with, maybe we stick with two recommendations. One, it would be this number 6, provided provided they can make that intersection safe. And, you know, then let that to the engineers. And if not, then maybe the second recommendation is John Ecken roads, which I think is workable. Again, my personal philosophy has been to dump the bicycles into traffic lanes because people know to ride with traffic, or they should know. And that's where I think these two concepts work well. The only thing we didn't like about John, because we didn't really dismiss it, the one thing we did not like is up near the number 4 where the triangle is. We wanted to get rid of that traffic lane to the right or east of the triangle. So if we do that, I think we've got two concepts that could be developed by some traffic engineers.
Stan,
Yeah.
is there going to be any serious discussion of the possibility of a restroom in this area? It's a different topic, but if it's a possibility, and I'm not sure the committee's identified a need for a kind of a 4th bathroom, but it would seem like this area would be one possibility, maybe not the best one, maybe not even doable, but certainly an option.
And then the Henlope people probably won't like it.
Oh, I don't think that's entirely different. We just,
But if it is,
I mean, we could certainly put in there a note that this whole area should be holistically looked at, especially in terms of
the
you
whole
know,
part
when you're
needs
gonna
work.
when you're gonna redo stuff, the possibility of putting more bike racks in for restrooms or those type of things.
That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
there's going to be a push to add a restroom, a public restroom on the north end somewhere, I mean, there's really only maybe 2 or 3 possible places
Yeah.
it could be done.
Would everybody be okay with a little note?
Yeah.
Just to be aware of a holistic recreation of that area if need be, and that makes sense. And so what we'll do then, if I'm not hearing any objection, is go back and kind of.
Can you stop there a second,
Yeah.
just for a second? One of the problems that we had, or that we could see, was people going north, however they get onto Surf Avenue. It's not that much of an issue because they just kind of blend into the right. It's the people that are coming down from the north, trying to get on there. And I think that's why John had number 5, where they would come down and go in
Right.
a different direction.
Correct.
That would seem a lot safer than having two-way in and out at number 4.
And I believe it probably is.
Yeah.
So that is what number 5 is.
Safety.
Yeah, see,
Well,
right,
that's-
his little, he
that's
has a little,
This one.
yeah, safety. If you have people coming in and out, we're just afraid that the people get.
Would you rather flip-flop it and say John Ecken Roads minus that one street to the right is the better option.
If you look down at his little hand drawing, the next thing, that's, for me, is clearer, I think, than that one. I think that's clearer than the other picture. That's
Yeah.
how he's got it.
But it is more circuitous and less intuitive.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and there will still be people that'll do it, but I'm gonna try to direct them.
But if you keep it one way, that'll maybe encourage people to go with the flow of the traffic versus against the
Right,
traffic.
if you make that two-way, they're just gonna dip right in, sure.
But again, this,
Sure.
this one right here, would be eliminated and it would go up here, is what our recommendation was. So we can,
Yes.
we can make
Yeah,
these
that
both,
one, yeah.
Yes.
yeah, we can make those
Yeah.
two, both concepts equal and say they both have merit,
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
but further analysis.
I think you gotta eliminate somehow those two exits, those two roads going, connecting right there
Yeah.
to Lake.
Right.
They somehow gotta be just turned on at one.
Right.
That's the confusing part there.
We're okay with that?
Good.
Okay. Any members sitting out there got any more comments?
One more,
Going?
wait, one more.
Yeah.
So with this concept, in front of the Hinterlopen, would that be a walk your bike area?
No, that, no.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
because I mean, remember, we're passing this on to the city manager,
Correct.
street transportation passing on. They could have a combination of that. They could say, yeah, we want to do that in addition to John Eckenrode's concept. And they could certainly do that. But we're sharing that we're a little dubious about walk your
I agree, I
bike
agree.
working.
I agree.
That's
It's a
all.
great idea, but
Chief, you have anything? Okay, yeah. I think that's it for that. Okay, that's gone. We're doing a good job. We're gonna move on to develop logistics for a trial recycling program on the beach or boardwalk. If you recall, we have a recycling report from 2003, I think. And if you recall, we talked about it, and the biggest problem back then was probably lack of education, and recycling was new to people. But the report analyzed it and indicated that a lot of the problem was the signage and the co-location of trash and recycling and all that stuff. I know Commissioner Dick Burns has got a copy of that report, and he's interested in bringing recycling back up. But we had talked about actually right before summer trying to implement a trial program. And Frank, you were offered to do that, but we never made any progress on it. And my fault, because I never went and sat with the city manager. And I guess what I'm asking you is it too late to try it on a very small scale by getting one or two recycle bins with the proper signage that the report recommends, and collating it with a trash can that has the proper signage on it, and trying it. And what it means though is somebody like your workers or some store workers have to monitor it so that as soon as it's full, that bag's pulled, and then we either work with Public Works to pick it up and take it over to the recycle bin, or some of us
But we do
have to go through it to see whether it's contaminated or not. Because the whole point is, if the recycling is gonna be contaminated, so that when it's picked up by the collector and it's ultimately thrown away, then we wasted our time. But it takes that involvement for this trial and a commitment from either the city personnel or us to try to do the trial and make it work.
There are some recycle the city is embarking on, because I believe with the big belly tests, like I think over in Stokely Park, we have two big bellies. One I think is recycle, if I recall right, and one is regular trash. So.
But
I
there's
mean,
no way to judge contamination.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how the city
There's no
does
way.
it. Yeah.
They're compacted,
Does-
picked up in a bag, throw into a recycle truck or something.
But maybe we could get the city involved in seeing how that test is going and doing it a little bit more at other places.
Well, I do know that, Jay, when we went to Avon by the Sea 10 years ago, they had one of the first big bellies on their boardwalk. And I noticed this year, neither that town nor any town had big bellies on the boardwalk, period. It was all typical recycle bins, and they were all co-located with trash bins, and they were marked properly. And my recollection is that they were just trying for the cans and bottles. Although some of them had multiple bins for newspapers also or something. They weren't trying to collect everything in the world, so to speak. Do you?
3 quick points. Number one, this might be the best time of year to try it, because if it doesn't work right now, it's not gonna work in the summertime. Second point, is it likely we're gonna have an environmental committee added to the list of city committees?
Yeah.
So this might be something that we can pawn off on them, subject to our approval for aesthetics, and let them work out the details, since it'll be a little bit more in line with an environmental project than strictly a beach and boardwalk
Right.
project.
Okay.
And then the third thing, I really like the idea of just cans and bottles. It keeps it simple, and it avoids the, contamination issues that you're gonna run into with pizza boxes and
Right,
bags.
right. Okay. The point number 2, again, environmental committee. That could be 2, 3, 4 months before they're up and running. I don't know. I don't know what their parameters are, but that's something we could certainly keep an eye on. In the meantime, I thought maybe a trial would be worthwhile, especially when we have crowds. What are some big events coming up?
Sea Witch is coming up.
Jazz Festival, when is that?
That's the week before Sea Witch.
Yeah, it's
Week
October.
before,
Weekend
so
before.
if there's some big weekends we can shoot for, especially on the boardwalk, I mean, would you be willing to put,
We can do one at Virginia Avenue tomorrow.
but how long are you all open?
This year, we're gonna be open year-round, at least on weekends. Last year, we were.
Virginia Avenue,
Yes.
okay.
We were closed one weekend in January where the weather just wasn't cooperative. Not to say that we're gonna, be able to do the same thing this year, but our plan is to keep it open at least on the weekends year-round.
Okay, okay,
And I've got employees that would be perfectly willing to do the recycling and take charge of that. We do it at all the
Okay.
stores.
okay, okay. So I'll work with you, and then I will meet, or you will meet with city manager, try to get something going that might pique the interest of Commissioner Dick Byrne and the environmental committee, and kind of push that program forward. There used to be recycling. We got a recycling grant back in 2002 or so. And when it was done, that's an age a long time ago, when people kind of didn't know what to do. And we had blue trash cans next to blue recycle bins. And when the trash can filled up, you put it in the next thing next door. And so our guys were finding dirty diapers and trying to clean it out of the recycle bin so it wouldn't contaminate, and they just grossed out and quit it. So we're hoping that in this day and age, with a little more public education, that maybe it can work. So we're gonna try a trial and see if it's contaminated or not. All right, so that's good. Any other?
Are we
Yeah.
gonna use just the lids and have an opening just big enough for a can, or?
We're gonna, I would propose that we follow the recommendations from that report that we got. And that said, a single hole. Of course, they did for summer, they had the rubber thing on it to keep bees out of it. But for now, we can at least cut a hole and do something. And if you look through the New Jersey town slides, you'll see there's a lot of towns that have a lot of recycling.
And it'll be colored and painted and identified as a recycling can.
Yeah, somehow different than the trash can, yeah.
Does the city put out extra cans when there's an event like Sea Witch? Can't remember if they do or not.
I don't know that they do. I think they step up trash collection. I know in Main Street or they had a little chocolate, the walk around event
Yeah.
where you would go to different stores
Cocoa
and
crawl.
get what is it?
Cocoa crawl?
Cocoa crawl. The city would purposely put out extra cans along those routes. So, because everybody's going into a store and they're coming out with something that will be trash in 2 minutes. And so they learned that fairly quickly to do. I don't know that they do that otherwise for the big crowd. Anything else? All righty, we'll move on. Thank you. Updates on city projects involving the boardwalk and beach. I had not intended for Kevin to say anything. Kevin, you're welcome to, but otherwise I'm just going to give a little spiel. And then if you want to jump in and say something. This is really a new thing that we're going to put in all future agendas so that we can get updates, and particularly what we're looking for are any projects stemming from our recommendations or stuff. This is where John Dewey's letter comes into play. If you recall, when we made a recommendation and had studied restrooms, we came up with the need and recommendation for further analysis of restroom sufficiency, changing rooms. Do we need changing rooms? Family restrooms, and we said absolutely we need changing rooms. We weren't sure about 100%, but the priority was restroom sufficiency and family restrooms. And so the city at that time, we made the recommendations. John Dewey had written a letter. I don't know if you had even heard what we were doing, but that letter was absolutely perfect because it reinforced everything we had just said and recommended and the priorities. And the interesting thing is, at that time, a little over August a year ago, I think, the city manager started an analysis of the restrooms. First, she was looking at the restroom renovations that we had pointed out that all three restrooms needed severe or heavy-duty renovations. But at the same time, she hired a consultant to do some initial studies on putting family restrooms in. And that was only carried to a certain level, far enough so that when they did the restroom renovations, that it didn't interfere with future family restrooms being added. And so now that the restrooms are renovated and done, they're back to looking at family restrooms and changing rooms, specifically at the Delaware Avenue restroom facility on the boardwalk and also at the Baltimore Avenue facility in conjunction with second floor, second level for the beach patrol, because one of our recommendations also was to have a second floor observation deck for the beach patrol. And so that's all in the works. Again, I've been invited to those meetings. I haven't been to one yet, so I would expect by our next meeting, maybe we'll have drawings or something more to report. I think the important thing is that the city is taking this very seriously. They've hired consultants. They're looking at it with the intent of installing family restrooms and also some changing rooms at those two facilities. What the priority is, whether it's one year, one the next, I don't know, because I haven't been in on it yet. I don't know what the funding is, but that's something that we want to keep in front of the Board of Commissioners and the mayor for the next funding season, because you got to have money to be able to do it. And so that's kind of basically the spiel I have on family restrooms, changing rooms, restroom sufficiency. As far as I know, until I get in on those talks about the restrooms, I don't know if they're looking for the additional restroom capacity in the north area or not. So that's something that I'll have to ask them. And that was dealing with restroom sufficiency in the north, whether that was Girard Park or Mariners Triangle or Deauville Beach or something like that, that kind of thing. So I don't know where that is, if it's even on the radar now, but yeah.
I assume the city's looking into grants to help fund that?
Oh, they're always looking for free money. We're always doing that.
I've seen in Pennsylvania, I know they've gotten some grants for doing that kind of upgrades in certain parks within the state.
Yeah. And I would think even new freestanding ones. Remember, I've showed you a lot of pictures of different ones, and you'll see a lot of freestanding small restroom facilities that look nice in that slideshow of New Jersey towns. But those are something that, especially in the north, could very well receive grants from the state, because it kind of augments their bicycle loop.
Could we make the recommendation as a committee that the commissioners explore the idea of an exploratory committee to add additional restrooms? I mean, we've looked at that issue before, and we've looked at the south end, and there's no good options for a restroom on the south end. But on the north end, you've got the area there at Surfside Place. You've got the parking lot near the Village Improvement Center.
Right.
You've got the park at Lake Gerard. There might be some avenues there, and from personal experience, I can tell you there's a demand on the north end of the boardwalk. There are people that cannot walk all the way down to Baltimore Avenue from the north end.
I would prefer to sit down with the city and see what they're doing, because if they've already started something, or see what their intention is versus another committee, because we've already made the recommendation that it should happen. As far as placing them, I don't know whether that's better in a committee versus just letting the city staff look at it. Kevin? Turn it on. There you go.
I didn't turn it off.
The one thing that I would tell you that the city is doing is we're looking at the Lake Gerard Park area. One of the recommendations that came from a recent assessment of the city parks, trying to tie all those together, was we don't really have a good accessible playground within the city. The ones that we have are a little dated. So one of the recommendations was to turn the one, because of the new one at the school, we didn't want to go on the west side of town. So we looked at the tot lot at Lake Gerard. So we didn't want to do anything there until we knew how that was going to turn out, because that footprint will probably be expanded. So we do have a consultant looking at kind of a master plan for that eastern side of Lake Gerard Park, to include where the new tot lot would have to be, and then to site a restroom complex, something more similar to what we have at Grove Park, but something with some modern compliant restroom facility. Won't be large like Delaware Avenue or Rehoboth Avenue or Baltimore, but something to get some public restroom facilities on that north end of the boards.
Excellent. See what y'all did? Because it's based on your recommendation. Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to hear that they're making progress and able to do some of these things. Just to finish up on city projects, I don't know whether these go into city projects or my boardwalk observations, but the governor created a program, Keep Delaware Litter Free, and did it introductory here at the bandstand, and all of a sudden I saw a bunch of these stickers on some of the cans there. And so that's something kind of new. We have yet to resolve the trash can color thing, and we need to figure that out maybe at our next meeting. How do we resolve that? So we'll put that on the agenda. We've got new shower towers. How many? 4 this year. And do you recall?
It was a lot more. Yeah, I think it was like 8.
I can't remember.
New towers that used to be foot showers.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we replaced the previous
the foot showers with the shower tower, and they
I think 4 new locations for towers.
Okay,
Maybe it was like
okay.
8 new towers.
And they changed the coloration there. They look very nice. We got new, I guess these are stainless steel also. Water fountains. That's for my boardwalk observation later. So let me see. Yeah, I'll come back to that later. There is.
Restroom kind of upgrades that we did, so we did it all under the auspices.
I did want to show you had, sorry, I can't find it. Somewhere you did, hold on, I can't find it. You put railings and handrails in front of the Delaware Avenue restroom that look very nice. The people running the information kiosk at the Delaware Avenue restrooms had said, people go up and down the stairs all the time, and they need something to hold on to.
Yeah,
so we finally got something that looks like it works very well. And I think they were also interested in identifying the top step with paint or something, and maybe that's the next step, but maybe this helps to at least identify that there's something, that there's an edge to go over there. Yeah.
A question for Kevin. The foot showers and the new, full height showers, you said that was included in the upgrade for the bathrooms?
Right.
And that was part of the price that we had heard about the upgrade costing?
Say that again?
Well, I heard maybe $700,000, $800,000 for the bathroom upgrades. Is that included in that price that I
Yes.
heard?
Right. I think we came in, I forget now what we said at the last commissioner
Yeah,
meeting. It was 6 or just under 6 maybe.
I don't know.
But that did include those. the
I have
additional
that
showers.
sheet, and I know there's a lot of controversy over it, and I kind of maybe initiated some of that controversy, but the original pricing given, like $700,000, was way over the estimate, and the cost came in a lot lower.
Okay.
And so we can't use that number, but I'll find those figures and let you know that it's a lot less. Doesn't mean that extra money overages can be used for anything else, but they've got to start with the budget over again and everything. So anything else for projects? I'm just trying to skim everything. So
Yeah.
I didn't put.
It's only if we wanted to talk about the access mats. We had budgeted an additional one last winter, so we installed one. I forget now the street, but South End, and then Representative Schwarzkopf had purchased one for installation, I think on Norfolk. So we'll look at probably continuing that this year. Put 1 or 2 in the budget to see what we did an assessment of all of them. This year we had an intern, which ones, were harder to traverse than others. So we're just kind of working our way through. One thing that we found successful, although we didn't have a big storm to test it, is when we did have a storm, we just roll them up to the dune level, as opposed to previous years. I think we rolled it all the way up and hauled it away. Whereas what we're trying to do now is just roll it up to the dune, top of the dune, or maybe just the side of the dune, and then try to ride out the storm, because it does take a lot to roll them up and haul them away. So we kind of run the risk a little bit, but we thought it worthwhile, and it worked out well this year.
Very good. And when Jay and I were touring the New Jersey towns, we found some had the Moby mats, some had their competitors. In fact, a lot did, didn't they? But they also had an access mat that was a very heavy plastic that doesn't appear that it would even roll up. It's so thick. And what they would do is actually use the rotary broom on a tractor, because they were like 6 feet wide, to get people on and off the beach. So just the different types. That's in our slides. We'll show you later. Any other questions on city projects and everything? John, did you have anything you wanted to add? John's an advocate for the family restrooms. And again, when we go through some of the slides, either this meeting or the next meeting, you'll see that there's a lot of family restrooms. They might call them companion restrooms or something. But would you like to add?
Nothing in particular to add, other than being glad to hear that this issue seems to have gathered so much support. I've been in different conversations on next door, trying to get people involved in the conversation. And just a little bit of context, I'm a retired public school administrator, so I do understand the complexity of the budget process. And so that's where my focus will be directed, is to make sure that this is included in the next budget.
Very good. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. And I think we didn't keep real good records. Maybe we could do that by looking at our slides, but of the 20 towns we went to, I would say super majority, if not almost all of them, had family restroom facilities. Do you recall?
Yeah, that's very true. And they all, most of them had changing rooms, and they were very well used. And most of the changing rooms had shower towers, either outside or within a few feet, and they were well used. You have pictures of lots of people standing around the shower towers and near the changing rooms, and that's something to keep in mind.
Thank you, Jay. All right, we'll move on to the VIA. I just wanted to give you a report on the pending installation of some historical markers. The VIA, as you know, has been here many, many years. They work with the Delaware Public Archives, or Historical Marker Division of Delaware Public Archives, to install this kind of marker, and they partner with it. This is one they installed at well, the children's fishing pier. The mayor tasked me with setting up a meeting with the VIA reps and the state reps to do this, since I was chair of the Boardwalk committee. When the VIA had asked to put a marker on the boardwalk, it kind of raised a little caution flag in my mind, that our principles are clean, safe, friendly, and aesthetics is important. Where are they going to put these things? So the mayor tasked me with setting up the meeting. I met with VIA reps, with the state representative, Public Works, Kevin was there, the mayor was there, and we looked at different locations. This is part of our presentation I gave to the mayor and commissioners. They had already given permission to put a sign there. They did that first. And then second came picking the location. And so we looked from, with the back at the bandstand looking toward the ocean. You can see the end of Rehoboth Avenue there with Candy Kitchen over here. The existing historical marker is circled there, and the Women's Christian Temperance Fountain is in the middle. So the next slide shows the left of that, where there's the bandstand gazebo, and there's these little garden areas there. Couldn't do anything on the left and right extremes because there's electrics there that are buried. So we really only had one spot, and that's where Kevin was kind enough to hold up a piece of blue cardboard to show us where that sign could go, and everybody liked it. Frankly, what startled me, and I shared this with the commissioners, what startled me is that the head lady of the VIA said, oh, well, that license, she likes that there very much. But she originally conceived it, envisioned it on the east side of the boardwalk. And of course, my concern is you start to put too many things over there, and you mess up the brand, as Jay calls it, and you mess up the view shed. And that's why we kind of went over the aesthetics this morning. The view shed is important. So when I presented this to the commissioners, I suggested that either a policy be made or something. In retrospect, they probably should have said, let's cite it first and then give you permission instead of vice versa or something. But so anyhow, I wanted to let you all know, and that whether we want to try to come up with a policy or something, I don't know. I don't know how to do something. But I'm again, I personally am very cautious about things on the boardwalk. If you recall, the only signs on the east side of the boardwalk are what? There's a rule sign. On the back of it, a street sign. There's the little map sign. There's a sign.
Non-smoking
non-smoking sign. There's some no tent signs at the bottom of the dune crossing. But there's also one sign, I think it has to do with water quality, between Baltimore and Rehoboth Avenue. But it's not even chest high. So you look right over top of it when it's there. So maybe there needs to be height limits or number limits or something. So think about that.
Should that be 20th century?
What's that?
Either late 1900s or
That would be
That'd pretty early.
18 in the 1800s. I don't know, I'll have to check it out. That safety line is a line going out into the water, where in the old days wore those heavy bathing suits and they were filled with water and they're too heavy to walk out of the water, so you had to pull yourself out.
That's pretty clever.
Yes, indeed, yes, indeed. All righty, so we'll get rid of that baby. And then there's gonna be another historical marker up by the lighthouse there, so I wanted to share that with you. Next thing is update on pending beach nourishment. Kevin, I don't know if you have anything. The briefest note is that the bid's been awarded to Great Lakes Dredge, who has done all ours in the past, I believe. And the bid is set. They're working up in Cape May right now. And they're the low bidder in part because they are so close. The mobilization fee is cheap because they're just gonna skip down here maybe mid-October-ish or something. And I don't know what the job limits are, but it's typically from that far north of Rehoboth Avenue to that far south of Rehoboth Avenue. Anything that,
Stopping in closer to the vicinity of Rehoboth Avenue this year.
and doing,
That'll be our south, probably the southern tip of where they finish.
and going north from there. Very good.
And then pre-construction conference is this Friday, so we'll know a lot more about schedule.
Very good, very good, excellent. Any questions? Yes, any questions? No? If not, end of summer observations about the boardwalk. Our May meeting was supposed to be a walk on the boardwalk with summer observations pre-summer, and we didn't get to do that because the day of our walking tour was a nor'easter, and we held our meeting inside the Beach Patrol headquarters instead. I don't know if anybody's walked the beach or boardwalk later. This is not intended as criticisms. It's intended to, are there things that are out of kilter that need to be done better, different, or whatever? Does anybody have anything?
My observation when I've walked the boardwalk throughout the summer is that the city is doing an excellent job keeping it cleaned up. I'm not really seeing trash blowing around, a little bit here and there, but they're doing an excellent job.
Did you hear that, city folk?
Yeah, they really
Very
are.
good. We don't compliment you enough,
And they're very friendly when they drive by. They all talk to everybody, and looks like they're enjoying their job. They do a good job.
Yeah.
I noticed an increased police presence on the boardwalk, especially at night. And, despite that isolated incident at the beginning of the season, my feedback from my customers was that they thought the boardwalk was a little safer this year than it may have been last year due to the increased police presence.
Well, I think most of us have always thought that police presence would help deter, and then so you're helping to validate it. If my recollection's correct, I think we hired 8 extra seasonals this year. Oh, I got the chief right here. You tell.
I would like to say yes. It was approved in the budget, but by the time April comes along, we've already got our seasonals already hired, and it was kind of debated back and forth. We shot for 32. We will again this year. The reality is it's getting harder to get the seasonal officers because they can actually begin work earlier in the season, but they need to leave early August to go back to school because the school start up so much earlier.
But we need you to say something to validate what he said.
But no, absolutely.
Was there greater police presence on the boardwalk?
At night, yes, because we rearranged the schedule and the working schedule. We did some, just adjustment schedules helped that out to get more at night and on weekends. So we try to give the days off more, just Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday to have a bigger presence on a weekend.
Very good, very good. Excellent. Steve?
I'd like to say something about the beach enforcement officers that walk up and down the beach, and mainly about the tents. I think they're doing a really good job too.
They are run by the Beach Patrol, I believe. So the Beach Patrol this year, for this summer, got special funding to be able to hire some dedicated to enforcement. And that seemed to work very well, didn't it? Yes, very good, very good. I only have a few observations. Of course, I'm critical, and I guess I'm critical because I go back to having worked on the original boardwalk designs and templates, and I look at deviations from templates. So I feel I need to apologize once in a while for pointing out things. I believe I heard at one point that some of these black, I don't know, they're not finial, but whatever these things are on the boardwalk were going to be redone, and I'm wondering if they ought to just be stripped to the natural pot metal and then left alone. I'm not convinced they're going to last one summer. But anyhow, they're and then these bases. I hope that we're going to look at these bases and get them fixed at some point. Something. But I would like to throw out a compliment. When we had storm, if you go up on the boardwalk and look at some of these storms, it's kind of fun to do, watch and see how far the waves come up to the dune line, toe of the dune there. I don't know if you can see, but on the right side over here, our public works crew has anticipated this storm causing damage. And as Kevin said, that they roll up the Moby mats, but they also move the trash cans back so that they're still there and usable, but they're out of the way and they're not going to get blown over or float away from town. So I just wanted to point that out, that there's compliments in there as well. And I think they're doing a good job on replacing boards, although I think we're getting at a point where
We need help.
it's catching up to us.
Right, so
Yeah.
I would ask you to throw that on the next agenda at some point. If we're gonna continue to do thanks, Chief.
Oh,
If we're gonna try to continue to do board by board replacements, we can't keep it up with the current staff we have. We couldn't keep up this year, to be honest with you. What we would ask you to do is just contemplate whether it's better to do, a big chunk of the boardwalk all at one time, have a contractor come in and do a third or a quarter or whatever it would be. Still use our carpenter to do the board replacement individuals that we need on the unrenovated piece. But we need that discussion to happen so we can know what to do with this year's budget. Either we're going to have to increase manpower specifically for boards, or we'll have to entertain letting a contractor come in and do a couple of blocks worth at least at a time.
all right, thank you. We will entertain that. Appreciate it. Any other questions on historical marker, beach nourishment, end of summer observations? Anybody go in the bathroom, use the bathrooms?
Yes.
They're very nice. They're very nice.
Bathrooms are
Yeah,
very
thank you.
nice. One comment I have about the bathrooms is that there's an awful lot of toilet paper that gets scattered around. And it's been my observation in other bathrooms that when you put a better quality toilet paper in there, you don't have as much blowing around. That might be something they could consider.
Is it because
It's too,
as you unroll?
it just keeps
As
rolling.
you
It
potty
yeah.
talk here.
Yeah.
As you unroll it, it just rips off and then it falls on
And
the
it
ground.
blows around, and women are great for putting on the seat rather than using the other things.
Yeah.
And it goes everywhere. The young ladies that have been working in there have been doing a good job, but they say it's the toilet paper that's the biggest issue.
Mm-hmm. And one thing, Jay, how did we find the restrooms in these 20 towns? I think a majority of them had attendance, do you recall? And they were all super clean.
Yeah.
I mean, and
If they were larger than just two restrooms, they must always had attendance. And that's the beauty of having your restrooms near your changing rooms. You can have a efficiency of labor, and the people could. A lot of times they were sitting outside on chairs and keeping track of the restrooms and the changing rooms, and you just about have to do that, I think.
thank you. All righty, well, now we're gonna get to the section where we go over tour of New Jersey boardwalks. We'll stop close to 11 so we can finish our other business. Again, this is intended more of an introductory talk because there's over 700 slides, and you'd be amazed how quickly you can go through them if you want and you do it yourself, One of my goals, well, let's start here. When we were building the boardwalk, getting ready to redesign it back in 2008 or so, we did a tour of maybe 17 boardwalk towns at that time, including Virginia Beach and wherever else, Keensburg. There were some extra ones. I went to Coney Island and Rockaway Beach, which I haven't gone back to yet. Would like to, because post Sandy, I want to see them rebuilt. But anyhow, back in 2008-ish or so, it was very interesting going there and looking. And our focus was amenities on top, but a lot of my focus was underneath. How was it built, construction and everything, to bring back to the boardwalk committee and the consultants as we designed the new boardwalk there. So it was interesting now, 10, 11 years later, going back to the same towns plus a couple extras and seeing what was different. And there were some differences. Sandy caused some differences. You could tell which ones had succumbed to Sandy because they had new dunes with new grass, maybe brand new boards. And it was a variety. It was interesting because some of the New Jersey towns, even abutting each other, had zero damage. Some had only dune damage, some had damage up onto the boardwalk, and some had damage beyond the boardwalk where the buildings are and everything. So it was very interesting seeing those things. But this tour was to particularly share with this committee to see if there's anything that interests us. You know, I'm happy generally with the way the boardwalk is. I think it's got a nice, clean, simple look that I've said all along. But maybe we need something. You know, maybe we need that chairlift like Seaside Heights has. And maybe we need that Ferris wheel. Maybe we need, you know, obviously I'm being facetious, but if you look through there, you'll see different amenities. First, what I'd like to do is go through some of the slides, but get your ideas on how I can better organize these slides. And I guess one way to organize them would be to take all our reports and recommendations and organize them according to our reports so that we can go back and insert them kind of as an addendum into our report, perhaps. But then there's other things too. How do you all want to approach this? There's the list. Again, these are, I've told everybody, I think, how to access these, so they know how to go online. Long Branch, this is just a web screen. A lot of them, it's interesting. You go to the websites and you've got a map of the beach with all the directionality on it, where the restrooms are and things like that, where you go parking. Some of them have lockers and things, some of them don't. And understand these pictures are not necessarily the best quality because we were there from before sun up to after sundown, and sometimes the sun was at our backs, and most of the time it was in our fronts, and we didn't get to see. But a lot of these are street views or boardwalk views, if you will. And Long Branch, let me just, again, I don't know how to approach this other than I would like to come away with some categories on how to better organize these for next time so that we can discuss whether some things have merits or not. We've got ones with family changing rooms that could be one section on its own that we can pass on to the group that's doing the consultation and engineering of family restrooms. Yeah.
I think if you grouped it by what our interests are, in other words, bike issues, family changing rooms, boardwalk itself issue, or whatever, if we could put it in categories and then put pictures from each one of the beach towns that you have for that.
Yeah.
It's kind of easier to identify those type of things that may work for us when to discuss those issues. It'd be easier going through the whole thing.
Let me make sure I understood you. So
A category.
by categories, okay, because that's why I put the name and a number on each slide, so that if I pull out Long Branch here and put it in family restrooms, I can remember where it was from.
Guy has a great idea. I would also add aesthetics to that list of, groups.
Whatever issues or categories that we have. Come on.
Aesthetics. What are some reports we did real quick? Bike lanes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to find that some of these have bike lanes painted on.
Beach patrol.
Emergency
lanes.
Lane.
Yeah. Signage.
We did cameras.
Wait, what did you say?
Beach patrol.
Beach patrol buildings and stuff.
We had cameras, we were talking about.
Security overall.
Signage.
Cameras within that. There's some that have bollards and things that might be something that we need to look into in the future. The way the world's going, and people, if you remember, 2 years ago, cars driving up and down the Ocean City Boardwalk illegally, and they had to put in bollards and everything. So what I can do is look up all our reports and see what we come up with. We already know family restrooms, changing rooms, restroom, buildings. What are some other categories?
Signage.
Signage. Signage. commercialization,
Bike racks.
yeah, that's,
Handle the
that's
trash.
important because I found some
Some
wacky,
examples, yeah.
for me, the wacky design bike racks, people don't know how to use it.
Right.
Yeah, from my point of view, you know, bike racks,
Railing issues.
railings. Okay,
Trash cans and recycle.
trash can, recycling. But I think almost all the towns did recycling, if I recall.
Looked like it.
And it may be a state mandate, but they all did recycling on the beach and the boardwalk. Now, there were a couple or several towns that had no trash cans on the beach because it was a carry in, carry out. And there were some, and of those, there were ones that did not allow food and beverage in containers on the beach.
They made their folks leave their coolers on the boardwalk.
Yeah, so you had to see all the coolers on the boardwalk there. So,
Clean.
um,
One other thing is that was remarkable for me. I think boardwalks are getting away from the use of wood. We saw, well, we saw boardwalks that were asphalt. We saw boardwalks that were stone. And then we saw like composite. We saw one or two Ipe and 3 or 4 southern yellow pine that were older boardwalks. But, and something else to remember, and it changes the entire concept of how you handle your boardwalk. New Jersey allows construction buildings on the ocean side of the boardwalk. So there will be a lot of really nice features you'll see that are on the seaward side of the boardwalk. The pavilion might go out, they'll have restaurants, they'll have all kinds of facilities, and Delaware doesn't allow that. We go to the eastern edge of the boardwalk, and that's as far as we can go. So that changes the concept of a boardwalk. And then there's arcades or no arcades, and New Jersey has boardwalks and promenades that really illustrate the vast differences in those things.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think one of the things important, we'll categorize these and organize them so that we can look at them. And then we'll be able to evaluate. And of course, part of the evaluation you have to think about it is how is that town that has that amenity or something different than ours? Look at the width of the beach here. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but right here, here, this is an emergency lane. There's little signs there that nobody can set up camp there. And they've also got emergency lane perpendicular to get you to the water's edge. Excuse me. But we're gonna look at those slides. Excuse me. We'll look at those slides, but again, even if we find that it can work in Rehoboth, the conditions might be different. You got Wildwood. I'm gonna go in a coughing fit, I apologize. You got Wildwood that's about 1,800 feet deep. So that's what, 50 times deeper than Rehoboth Beach.
Right.
Excuse me. So, other than that, evaluation criteria, there's rules. I don't know if we want to get into rules or not. The different rules for bikes on and off. Some Ocean City, New Jersey is incredibly crowded, and they allow bikes until noon. There's certain things that I don't know that I want to revisit. Personally, I don't mind if the committee wants to. We certainly talk about it. But, we went through banning bicycles discussion many years ago, and it was not comfortable.
Could we maybe include Ocean City, Maryland in the slides, even though these are New Jersey beaches and that's the...
Well, Jay and I were thinking of doing Bethany and Ocean City maybe maybe before the next meeting, I don't know, and adding those in there too or something. And then if the city would fly us to Myrtle Beach and Virginia Beach, we'll do that. The parking, the parking we can make note of too, that may be more of interest to the commissioners or something, but you know, a lot of these towns, like if you look here, a lot of the New Jersey towns have the boardwalk parallel to the ocean, and they've got the road abutting it parallel to the ocean. It's quite a different setting here. Now you've got Atlantic City and you've got Wildwood that all have the roads spider and the fingers dead end at the boardwalk. But they've got all the commercial there and everything. It's quite different. We found some towns that it was $2 an hour to park at the mechanical meters. A lot of them are upgrading to the Park Mobile and the new meters. We had some towns that I had just parked on the opposite side and fed all my quarters in. And when I got to this side, a man was very nice and said, sir, just want to let you know that this side of the street is free. Unbelievable. Right, is that right? I'm not kidding. So free, and the other side is 50 cents an hour or something, yeah. But can you imagine what the big difference is in a lot of these towns? Money-wise. A big difference money-wise.
They have permits to go on the beach or what? They have permits to go on the beach or their taxes or what?
Beach tags.
Beach tags.
Beach tag. Ocean City, New Jersey, I think said they bring in $5 to $6 million in beach tag. Well, that funds a heck of a lot of things, you know?
But they've had beach tags for over 50 years. It's
Absolutely.
more or less tradition.
Absolutely.
They also have more property tax than we do.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So again, back to that evaluation, there's a lot of differences.
What do they have for hospitality taxes too? I mean, their hotel taxes could be more.
Yeah,
lodging
absolutely,
taxes.
absolutely.
A little bit more, but not I think
Not a lot.
we stayed at Atlantic City, and I believe the hotel tax was 34%. So the folks here who are complaining about 11%, which is 8 plus 3, they got a way to go.
Wow.
That you can see, this is Long Branch, and this was devastated by Sandy, and you can just see all the new construction that's going on. This is all new. This has all been renovated, and Stan has pictures of the restrooms and stuff. It's just tremendous what they have done in their rebuilding, and that it's not just Long Branch. It's Belmar. It's Ortley. It's Belmar, Bradley. It's a bunch of the beaches on south of here all the way down to Atlantic City. It's just tremendous rebuilding because of the damages that Sandy had done. And they have made good, you see how beautiful this, I mean, this is pretty. They've made just tremendous decisions.
When they did all the rebuilding, did they actually put in dunes this time or not?
Well, yeah, you'll see that too. Stan has the
I noticed
replenishment.
a couple of pictures when I went through, but I didn't notice.
Yeah, from Tom's River on north.
Actually, I'm going to correct you. Some of the sounds south were devastated. This one actually survived pretty well, okay? This is a town where
But they're
a
boardwalks.
10 or 15 block area along the boardwalk and 2 blocks away from the boardwalk was bought up by a corporation, torn down and gentrified. So all this is new in the last 12 years since we were there last. And it's all absolutely gentrified. So it's as if you designed a new town from scratch. This is what you would come up with.
Is that
With retail on the first floor and residences on the second, third, and fourth floors. And I mean, this is just amazing.
Is that the area that's wiped out by Sandy?
This area, not so much. That went underneath the boardwalk. The next town south, yes. I can't remember what the next.
I knew there was one of them that went quite a ways inland, that's what.
Yeah.
So is one of the purposes of the slides a competitive analysis? How we
Well,
stand, or what are our goals versus?
I think that's a good way of putting it. Do we need, what is our brand? do we want to make any changes? Do we need to make any changes to be competitive?
Commissioner Lagree brought up branding many meetings ago, so, it begs the question, do you want to, you can't be the biggest, right? You could be the most luxurious, you could be the nicest, you could be the most traditional, but, what's the end goal there?
I think Rehoboth has a very strong brand right now, and I think we just need not to screw it up. And the worst part about it is it takes a lot of money not to screw it up. But we need to do that. We need to fight that fight. I don't think we're totally different from Long Branch. We're totally different from Belt. We may be, there may be one or two towns that would be similar to Rehoboth, but I think you compete by not letting your brand get away, by keep people coming back to what they know and love, and they did as they were little bitty kids. They'd lined up and had treasured French fries, and they poured vinegar in there, and grotto, and all the stuff, bands, all the stuff that people do. You have to keep doing that.
Well, you hit a key word for me, and that's familiarity. I think we keep hearing about retaining the charm and everything, which I'm all for. I'm not for big changes,
Yeah.
but the familiarity is, I think, what attracts a lot of people coming back in again.
When we did our code, we had little shops and nostalgic places, and we've kept that for years and years. And you ruin that by having trashy boardwalks and dirty restrooms and garbage and stuff that I agree with everybody else. This has been the best summer as far as a really nice boardwalk and beach that I can remember in a lot of years.
I agree, and I've cautioned myself in comparisons to other towns, because I'm not trying to say we're trashier than others or better than others or worse than others. I mean, I think we're a phenomenal town, and we have a unique niche there. I just don't want to screw it up with 50 wireless antennas on the boardwalk and some of these electronic boxes that you see in Atlantic City and stuff like that. That's where I don't want to go with a lot of these things. But let's go.
Can I make just one observation on that branding part? I think we've done an excellent job on it. I think if you look at, when you go through all these slides, the one thing that I noticed when I was going through them all is what stuck in my mind about what makes Rehoboth Beach stand out as far as visually is you take a look at our lifeguard stands, which are different than anybody else's, of course. They tie in with our benches that are on the boardwalk. I mean, it's easy to see when you see a picture of Rehoboth, you know it's Rehoboth. I think going through some of these in New Jersey, you kind of lost track after all where you were. The type of park benches varied even on the same boardwalk in the same town. And I think that's something that you want to keep as far as the branding goes. Walking over here today, the one thing I noticed that surprised me was the benches out in front of the city hall are not like our benches around town. They're the metal ones, which surprised me. Why would you use the old, beach benches that we have on the boardwalk? But that's one thing, you're right, we got to keep doing what we're doing.
Well, and back to that familiarity thing for a minute. Remember when Public Works changed the white swing-back benches to brown? Ooh, that was not received well at all, and that didn't last until they could buy white paint and paint those things. Do you remember?
Yes. Maybe it would be useful to, as far as branding goes, identify what the committee's top priorities. If we're going to brand ourselves as the cleanest, boardwalk and beach, then where does that stack up in terms of other priorities, and come up with a list of the top 5 priorities in terms of branding, whether it be clean, traditional, luxurious. We could probably do that at a future meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Let's just go through 10 minutes of slides or something, because I want to get you out even a couple minutes early. But and I want to and believe me, you all are invited to speak up. I don't know if you have experiences with other beach towns or what do you love about us that keeps you here instead of going to the other towns or something. But this is just gonna be a quick exercise, if you will. If you got a question or comment, then raise your hand, but this will show you how we can perhaps categorize some of these things. You know, these are the emergency lanes that are perpendicular to the thing. Here's recycling, where they've got the recycle bins co-located with the trash cans. They don't allow bicycles on the boardwalk, period. That's emergency lanes. Again, they have the wide beach. We can't do a lot of these things they've got the commercialization. They've actually got these things on the beach, the newspaper stands.
But only 2 of them.
Only 2 right there. Bicycle racks, you know, those people probably know how to use that kind. A lot of these towns use banners. Emergency lane, emergency lane. Ooh, goodness gracious. Trash. This is where Jay was saying some private property is on the ocean side of the boardwalk. I thought that's a needed amenity. I don't know that we have that anywhere. I would target that personally, you know, for something like that. They have different animal rules. There's you know, we're getting more conscious about disposable and get rid of reusable bottles. So here's a water fountain. Maybe that would be a good idea. This has AEDs, but it also has security cameras. Pretty much every town had visible security cameras up there.
Don't we have those here as well? I mean,
I'm talking about, most of the town had a proliferation of security cameras. Yes, we do, but we only have 3 for a mile of boardwalk. So it's minimal. It covers a very small area. And this committee has promoted more. And it's just, I think it's a matter of funding. Just, you know, pretty much most of them have, see here's security feature, the AED. This is an AED that's even inside a retail store that I don't know whether it's provided by the town or something, but they found that somebody would do that. This is some of that new construction. Again, you can go back at your own speed. These are paid for, but this is a private enterprise that owns that property. So they've got cabanas. They all have water and electrics and everything.
They have little tables and that's on the beach side of the boardwalk.
These octagonal buildings are restrooms. They're huge. They're huge. And Long Branch isn't that any bigger than Rehoboth, but they have a lot of restrooms there. It's kind of, again, for me, in going through all these slides, what really catches my eye are the cleanliness and simplicity of the boardwalks, the ones that have the light posts up and down the boardwalks without all the banners, without all the signs, without all the wire towers, and things like that.
Are they using a composite?
They are. They're using a composite. And that's something that I don't know if were you intending to have us debate the type of decking again? Because I hate to go there. But
Be about for a couple of years.
we could do it, but
That'd be just city.
I hate
wouldn't it?
going there because we had substantial talks earlier, and there's reasons to do it and reasons not. Now that's got banners in it, but it's relatively
You
clean.
don't see utility poles. You don't see wires running everywhere.
Don't see trash cans either.
It's hard to compare a planned community like that just happened 15, 20 years ago. That's just something that's been going on for 100 years.
Where they flip back stand
What's that?
Not three back, flip through the cell tower.
Yeah. This was an area between Asbury Park. Long Branch is here and Asbury Park's the next one south. So you can see what, they got LED lights with tower there. Of course, this is quite a bit off in between those towns and off the boardwalk. So,
But the power is underground.
yeah. Yeah, which way I'm going. So we got the parking zone. I still don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, how many bikes you can get at those things. A lot of these towns, Jay, they had mini vehicles.
They all had mini vehicle. I did not see one conventional trash truck. I don't believe, I can't remember seeing.
You can see the mini vehicle in the lower left corner there. Even in the crowds, they even have the police mini vehicles. So maybe that's another category, mini vehicles or boardwalk vehicles. They've got traditional wood boardwalk. I love wood. If you don't know now, you'll know shortly. Love wood. See how clean, for me again, and see how clean it is with the single lights down one side. I love it. There you go.
That was probably the nicest looking trash cans of all the ones I saw.
Did you ever talk to any of their public works folks to see are they doing anything with the recycle? You can have a bin there, but are they actually recycling it?
Well, New Jersey, I think it's state law, they have to, so.
Have to offer it, or what happens when they pull the bag and they go back to their yard?
Well, that's just like our state law says, Delaware state law says, once it's segregated, you cannot commingle it again. So I don't know the answer to that. There is a slide in here of Ventnor Beach that has the two holes for recycling and trash. When you open the lid, they go into the same bag. Yeah, go big. Go big.
Doing our job. Yep.
So look, here's some primitive showers. You know, it's just a little valve you turn there, and it's right in this area here. A lot of good signage on where the restrooms are, which I think is very important. So wherever you are, you can find that signage on where the beach access services are. They even have beach passes that you can buy with these credit card machines instead of having to go to the people. But look how wide their beach is. It's wider than ours. Now, interestingly, they do not have any dune. So you can take time to read all these rules and everything. They had a lot of restrooms too, but a lot of portable summer use restrooms. So here's restrooms that are portables in trailers. Whoop, that one. And they're spread up and down the boardwalk. They put their visitor center right on the boardwalk. Asbury Park's interesting because as the boardwalk goes south, you're looking south, it literally joins Ocean Grove Boardwalk. So you can walk forever, so to speak. And then these containers on the right are restrooms. So they've got even more restrooms. Here's gender neutral, they call it. That's in the end of one of and then here's the women's and the men's restrooms. Police chief might be interested in that. Recycling, mini vehicles. Lockers, a lot of these towns have lockers on the beach because they got a wide enough beach. And there's usually a line and a lottery to get a locker. There's so many of them. We only found one town that actually had locker room in a building. And they had probably 50 lockers for changing rooms and where you could go in and change and everything. One town. But although Seaside, one of the other towns had a private enterprise that had showers and lockers and changing.
Jenkinson's had,
Which,
I think it was Jenkinson's, wasn't it?
yeah,
That had-
which is,
that had to pay for
which is
showers.
Point Pleasant maybe?
Yeah, at Point Pleasant, and,
Those lockers, are they daily or can you keep things for the whole
For
season?
a year.
For the whole season?
yeah, they pay $1,200 for a locker, or I mean, for a shower
Yeah.
for a year, and that included five badges. So they got 5 people could get
Beach tag.
beach tags and then their own shower for $1,200 a year. And it was like a lottery, and the guy said they always have
So this was a
people.
private shower?
It was your own private shower. Stan has pictures.
Wow.
And
Like these boxes on the beach, do they rent them for the season where they keep their
Yes.
chairs and everything there?
yes,
And they don't have to haul it down to the beach every day?
no, they keep them in the box. They come along and unlock the box, and a lot of them have a wagon in there. They pull their families.
Yeah.
Pull
So
the stuff to.
you rent your little compartment.
Yep,
For the season?
Yeah.
yeah, for the season.
So we'll wrap up in a few minutes, but finish maybe Asbury Park here. Parking machines, the famous stone pony. Let's do one more town real quick. Ocean Grove is to the south of it. Ocean Grove is interesting to me because it's a camp meeting, Methodist meeting, where the
Lot of
camp
Christian
meeting
census.
still owns 100% of the property.
Who does?
Nobody owns the property,
Can't
it's all
sell
ground
that.
rents.
Is that where you can't drive a car on Sunday or something?
Well, they, up until I think the 80s, they shut the gates and you could not drive on Sundays. And I think UPS sued them somewhere in that time frame, sued them, and they had to open the gates.
Still a little tough to get an alcohol.
So they had a pier that goes out into the water that was destroyed. So they're trying to seek private funds to help rebuild that. So you can see their boardwalk is an older one with wood on there, rebuilt. You can see again lockers in front of the boardwalk. They have dunes there. They actually have a wide sandy strip and then the dune. So you can't, except for these open areas, you can't see the ocean from the boardwalk. At one point, they redid some of the boardwalk, and you can see they switched to composite. The thing with composite, when you butt join it here, you've got to allow a little space, because in the summertime, if there's a gap like this, it will push together. And if you, Belmar, when I first met their public works director, they had just installed it, and they butt everything tight so that it looked absolutely beautiful in the off season. Then when summer came, it literally went like this, and it was hard to walk on and everything. So you got to know how to install some of that stuff. This is a little teeny town. I mean, it's smaller than Rehoboth altogether, and the commercial is only about a quarter of Rehoboth, but they have showers here. And then on the other side, they got the shower tower here, besides other locations. And then in the door on the left there, I stuck my head in there, there's changing rooms. You know how delicate you have to be taking pictures in bathrooms? So,
You didn't end up in jail anywhere along the way.
that's why I always kept Jay with me to bail me out of jail just in case. But you see, look how primitive that is, you know, and it works. People use it. All they want to do is get out of their clothes into something else. So it needs to be, I guess the lesson for me is it needs to be big enough to take your dry clothes in or put them somewhere so that then you can be able to change clothes or something. Again, back to the mini vehicles. One of the things I noticed is that a lot of these towns, and especially the small ones, had almost constant trash collection, I think. Do you agree, Jay? Yeah. all day long. So here's just some of the decking boards. We're almost finished with trash, bottles and cans, trash. There we go. Any questions on those?
Where can we see this slide? Is it on the city
If
website?
you go online to the agenda,
Yes.
and the link is right there on the agenda. And it will take you to it. We didn't embed it in the agenda because it's 700 pages. If you printed out the agenda, you get 800 pages worth. So we have links for that. So what we'll do next time is, I'll put these into categories and we'll look at each, and it'll probably condense the number of slides because I'm not gonna use every one. So if you go back and you have a question on a slide, they're all numbered. You can certainly bring that up at the next meeting or send me a note. And we'll categorize them, we'll evaluate them and go from there and start off with Frank's exercise on, are there any particular branding things that we want to look forward to or look toward. From there, we got citizen comment and committee member comment. Anybody have anything else?
Were you gonna talk cell towers at all today?
Well, I meant to bring it up during city projects and make everybody aware that the mayor and commissioners adopted a new ordinance regulating wireless towers in Rehoboth Beach. Regulates height, placement somewhat. And I'm just gonna be blunt with you. I was the sole one to vote against it because specifically on the boardwalk, I wanted to establish restrictions from the get-go on where you can and cannot put wireless. My thought as a commissioner at that time was that wireless towers should not go on the east side of the boardwalk, the ocean side, but be restricted to the west side. However, through an appeal process, then you could appeal that or something. And the commissioners, other than me, said, we're just gonna have them go to the city manager and public works director and duke it out, I guess, kind of a thing, or something. So is that fair assessment of generally fair?
Might be a little one-sided, but I didn't have a dog in the fight other than first companies come in and they come in and want 7 of the poles on the boardwalk.
They've already applied for 7.
Right.
New ones. Are replacing existing lights?
I think what the ordinance is allowing us to allow the city to do is restrict to existing locations. I don't think we could say you can't use the pole there, they can use that existing pole. None of them really want to reuse anything, they all want to put in their new pole. So they've come up with some things that, as closely as possible, to
Jay.
match what we have out there. Microphone, sorry, Jay. So they've sent us some cut sheets on what fairly approximately meets what we have out there already. But that's one of 3 or 4 large companies that are going to come in. They're all going to want the same spot. So we're going, okay, well, if every agency's going to, or every cable company's going to come in and want 7 poles, and we multiply times 4, so we're at 28. So now we got 28 that are going to be a little different because they've got a big box that mounts to the pole and they're thicker. We can kind of match the globes pretty closely, but they're going to be different. So how we kind of coordinate or get them to say, well, let's just maybe do every other one. Now it's going to have a bulb on it. But where they want to site them is just, it's tricky. Doesn't facilitate doing that. And we've actually asked them to go back and talk to your other competitors, and we know that everybody's going to want X number. Let's figure it out so we can make it as uniform as possible. Don't know whether that'll all happen or whatever, but you've seen some of the shots of what these cell towers look like on the beach. I think what we think is that all we can do is make them all be the same. So if Verizon wants to use, if we finally come up with the pole that looks most like what we have, then we can make them use every cable company use that same pole. So that's kind of where we are right now, but it's happening. And they want to install them this year, so they have them for next season. So we're going to start seeing those coming in almost immediately. The
But
rest of them.
clarify for me, are you looking for them to use the existing locations and replace the light pole with a different versus doing something in the middle in between them?
Use the existing locations, what we're trying to force them to do. And they all seem amenable to that. They would just replace the pole, run whatever they need. The other thing they haven't really come in with is all the panel box or whatever that may sit outside it somewhere. We're trying to restrict that so that everything has to be self-contained within the pole. But we're going to start seeing those. So then now that brings up one of our other favorite topics is what kind of lights do we want out there? Are we going LEDs? Are we going variable LEDs? We're going back to old school, ballast and whatever. So again, to get the consistency from north to south on the boardwalk, need that kind of help with, okay, what does the committee recommend we do with respect to lighting on the boardwalk? Because we're going to be replacing a bunch of them with new poles and new lights. How do we want to progress with that? It's going to be a tough one, man, it really is.
Will these
I kind of poo-poo the ordinance that was passed, but in all honesty, well, I think it's problematic, and I think this is the beginning of the end for aesthetics for me. But I think Sharon and Kevin are going to do a good job in trying to aim for consistency. The problem is the federal government is giving the wireless so much allowances, almost, all this freedom to do this, and this with the minimal restrictions, that we have the ability to create these ordinance and restrictions, but they're not that tight. Because if the company proves that they need it in that location and only that location will work, then you have to acquiesce. So it's difficult. I just fear that without Sharon and Kevin's guidance, that we'll get a mishmash of stuff and everything. So.
The other interesting thing was that 7 is just for the boardwalk. That's for the people sitting on the beach watching their movies, right? Instead of watching it. There's another multitude, Evan, maybe help me remember the number that are out through the city as well. So I've seen presentations in more dense cities than Rehoboth, but it's 1 or 2 or 3 new poles or co-locating on a traffic light or something else on every city block and every city corner. It's that number would be needed for a 1 square mile city under the new, because self-driving cars, all these things that are going to be driven or driving this the new wireless system. I guess it's 5, right, or something,
5G,
whatever.
yeah.
5G, yeah, it's driving. The bandwidth requirements are huge, and the range on the 5G is much shorter than the 4.
5G range is like 200 yards. The latency problems with autonomous vehicles is just phenomenal, and they're going to have towers every couple hundred yards just to overcome the latency problem. And there's talk of low orbit satellites. That may help us, but it's not going to help the self-driving cars. We have a secretary of term of the FCC right now who's totally in the ballpark with the big communication companies, and I don't see that changing. I don't see that changing in 2020 unless there are some big surprises in the elections. So I think we're going to be looking at this really commercial cooperative FCC for another 4 or 5 years. So is the box that we see right now, is that an AT&T box that's on that post over there north of?
The only ones in now are AT&T. They put 5 in last year.
I saw one on the boardwalk that looks like it's got a hose about this big coming out of it.
Volleyball light?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's one they did. They did two on Rehoboth Avenue,
yeah, yeah.
one on Wilmington at First, and then one on the cupola at the Delaware Avenue restaurant.
Okay. That just looks like the Dickens.
Well,
And I know
take a
you-
look at the two on Rehoboth, because that's what everybody else is gonna have to match on Rehoboth. And they've got two within, really a one block. They're one block apart. Multiply that times Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, everybody else. I mean, Rehoboth Avenue is gonna look like those two poles. Or you're gonna have some of our old style and 15 of the cell towers. Now, do we want all of them to look like the cell towers? Or the mismatch?
So there's 4 of those on every corner then, because every communication company?
Virtually,
Ba-
yeah.
basically
There's
that's
all
what-
kinds of requirements that they've got to try to co-locate, but when you talk to them, they can't. They tell you can't. I believe them, but Jay probably knows a lot more than I do about the interference. Somebody else does, but they talk about how they then interfere with each other's signal.
So they can't share an antenna.
That's correct.
Nor a pole.
They can't,
I don't think they really want to share.
they don't want to cooperate.
Correct. They would come in and AT&T would have that corner, Sprint would have that corner, and somebody else would have that corner. So it's that intense.
On the placement of the one on Wilmington Avenue, can they put them back a little bit further? So you walk out of the store and you almost hit that dead on. I mean, the placement's gotta be some type of, the city has to take some type of control of
I
that
think that
device.
is in the ordinance where it can be with respect to a doorway or an entryway kind of thing.
The one on the,
Where they put the stop
corner of
sign.
Wilmington was
And
a
first.
stop sign.
Yeah.
And they intentionally
It's like,
replaced the stop sign, so.
Kevin, is there a way to keep these things off of the area on the boardwalk that's near the bandstand and Rehoboth Avenue, the kind of the focal point of town?
The first one they asked for, Verizon came in last week, the first one they asked for is they wanted to replace one of the flag poles at the memorial.
That's the last
You're
one that
asking
should
the
be
wrong guy
allowed.
about, That's not happening while I'm in Breakfast Club
No,
Court.
no.
I don't care what the law says, I'm not letting you do it.
Well,
They're not be facing that memorial.
Well, I agree with that, but also I agree with, the previous boardwalk committee was very possessive of the view shed at the end of Rehoboth Avenue. That's why we didn't put a shower tower at the end of Rehoboth Avenue at both dune crossings. They were foot showers. We haven't put any other signs there. That's why I was critical about a BIA historical marker being anything other than where they placed it on that side. So, I would say that is verboten for wireless towers, that I hope you establish.
I don't know what the code really allows us to do with respect to that, but if AT&T says they need one right here, Verizon's gonna be within, very close proximity. Whether we can restrict, kind of 2 or 3 right in front of Rehoboth, I don't know.
is there a reason why those towers can't be put above commercial buildings and things like that, so they're not on the street? Why do they have to have a tower on the sidewalk or on the street or on the beach boardwalk? Do you know?
Out of my league.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I think they probably like dealing with the city instead of 45 different businesses to try to get on top of somebody's roof.
Are they paying the city?
Yes, there is a fee structure, it's limited by federal law, I guess now, is what set, what you can charge them for that.
I don't think it's been made into a law yet, but the FCC has issued guidelines that could just as well be a law.
One of the things I read is that the signal doesn't wrap around buildings and
Doesn't penetrate.
bounce around in parking garages and things, so they kind of want that antenna freestanding out in the open so it can have a direct line of sight.
Right, that's what they said at that meeting. It's all line of sight.
Yes, yes.
All right, we'll wrap it up. Any other comments?
So a date for our next meeting?
Well, we don't, because we have so many people that aren't here. I'd hoped that we could bring our calendars and do it here. But I think I might have to poll the other members. Normally, it would be October 14th, but that is Columbus Day. And I've already polled some members as not being available on the 15th, as maybe on the 10th. But then I would have to advertise that in the next 2 days. So I really, and then December is good on the 16th, hopefully. But November, yeah, what did I say, honey, on the 11th is Veterans Day.
That's Veterans Day, yeah. Didn't you
And
say October
Are we
21st?
closed on Veterans Day? Well, yeah, we are.
Didn't you say October 21st at one point?
Possibly. So what I'll do is send out a bunch of dates to see what we can do. We're having a kind of a problem getting quorum. You know, Jimmy and Brian all of a sudden had work problems. That's understandable, you know, but, and Allison came back from something late last night, so she wasn't able to make it today. But, I'm glad we're able to make quorum and conduct business, everything. Thank you for, you can take any of that with you. Thank you for coming. Anything, so is that all right? We'll send out some dates and go from there. Plan agenda, we've got boardwalk decking, boardwalk lighting, New Jersey towns, etc. that I'll probably could consume a whole meeting in itself. Anything else? Good to the order? Good. If not, we will adjourn this meeting at 11:10 a.m. Thank you very much.